Beautiful weather outside. A very good afternoon to all of you. Today in this tutorial, I'm going to discuss about the major geological, biological and atmospheric events that took place in Earth's history, that is in geological timetable. As you know, Earth originated 4,600 million years ago, and the first eon is named as Hadean, which literally means hell-like. So when Earth was formed, it was a molten lava. Temperature on the surface was more than 1000 degrees centigrade, and it was there were huge bombardments of meteorites at that time. The first thing that occurred with Earth was the formation of Moon around 4500 million years ago. The origin of the Moon, there is a theory called impact theory, large impact theory, or collision theory, that explains that there was another planetary body called um, Theia that collided with Earth like this, and because of this collision, the debris, they condensed to form the Moon. After the Moon's formation, it was continuously a period of heavy bombardment, and one of the huge bombardment resulted into the vaporization of the whole sea water. So water was already present. How did water appear on Earth? That is another story. We'll have a different lecture on that. So at about 4,300 million years ago, all the water of the ocean became vaporized. And evidences suggest that Earth crust was already formed. Radioactive analysis, uranium and lead radioactive half-life analysis reveals that there was a rock called zirconium silicate, zircon rather, and the carbon analysis, radioactive carbon delta 13 analysis reveals that the life might have originated during this 4,300 to 4,000 years. That is called Hadean origin of life. Whether life originated once and then or more than once, it is difficult to say. But first time life must have originated during that, because there are records, there are stromatolites as old as 3.8 billion years, that is 3,800 million years. Stromatolites are evidences of life forms. They are algal mats, deposits of algal mats, layer after layer in the seashore, and they form mound-like structure. When you take a cross section, or when you split it, you try to open and see it under the microscope, you get fossilized microalgae within them. Whether those are microalgae or maybe cyanobacteria, or I think they are 3.8 billion years old or 3.5 billion years old stromatolites, they possibly contain cyanomorphic bacteria. So if the stromatolites are 3.8 billion years old, that means life was already there. And it could be estimated that life might have originated 4,000 million years ago. After that, the time was 4,000 to 3,500 million years. This time period was of heavy bombardment of meteorites on Earth. And this is called Archean. This is Eoarchean era. Then there was Paleoarchean, then Mesoarchean, followed by Neoarchean. So Archean eon is divided into 4 eras. And the most important event that took place during Archean is at the end of the Archean. Rather, it could be said that the Archean to Proterozoic boundary, at that juncture, one phenomena that occurred, that is called Great Oxidation Event or Great Oxygenation Event, GOE. What is this GOE? Great Oxidation Event is a sudden spike of oxygen level in the atmosphere. What caused this sudden rise of oxygen concentration in the atmosphere? This was because of the cyanobacteria, the photosynthesis, this phenomena. Oxygen is evolved in photosynthesis. In photosynthesis, water is used as electron donor, and that splits into electrons, protons, and oxygen. Oxygen as a byproduct is released into the atmosphere. So cyanobacteria were already there. This is one very significant evidence that oxygen was accumulating in the atmosphere, At the very beginning, the oxygen did not build up in the atmosphere that much, because most of the oxygen was used up in oxidizing iron, forming iron oxide or rust, because of which there were many what that is called iron banded iron formation. Banded iron formation phenomena, the earth become red in color because of that. That proves that the oxygen was present, and but most of the oxygen that was being formed by the cyanobacteria was used up in oxidizing iron. And when most of the irons were oxidized, then gradually the concentration started rising up in the atmosphere, and that gave rise to the great oxidation event that we know. It happened to be around 2400 to 2000 million years ago. After that, the major event to be mentioned here is the juncture of Neoproterozoic to Paleozoic era, also known as Proterozoic Phanerozoic boundary or Proterozoic Paleozoic boundary. That means it's a time period around 750 million years to 541 million years. 541 million years is the starting point of Paleozoic. Before that, something happened on the earth which resulted into a change in the atmosphere that made it suitable for the diversification of life. And there was a second oxidation event that is called Neoproterozoic oxygenation event, NOE, that resulted in second spike in oxygen concentration in the atmosphere that built the current atmospheric oxygen level, that is 21%. At the first oxidation event, the concentration was around 12 to 15% of the atmospheric gases. The second event, it rose up to 21%, more than 21%. Then it got down a little bit, and it becomes stable at 21%. That we currently have oxygen concentration in the atmosphere. So there are other things that happened. Why did oxygen concentration suddenly got increased during Neoproterozoic? Once again, this was another photosynthetic phenomena that was, in an enhanced rate that occurred during that time period, because diversification of algae was taking place. There were red alga, chlorophycin alga, multicellular organisms like porifera or maybe Nidaria, Ctenophora in case of animals. They have already appeared. In case of plants, algae, bryophytes, they have originated possibly. Another geologically significant phenomena that occurred during this Proterozoic to Paleozoic boundary is the sea level subsidence. The sea level, it got down to about 600 meters. The water percolated into the mantle of the earth through the mid-oceanic ridges, the faults near the mid-oceanic ridges. And this resulted into the dilution of the magma present in the asthenosphere. It resulted in the decrease in the magma viscosity and also the melting temperature. The volume of the magma increased, and because of that, it started putting pressure on the earth crust, and that resulted into volcanic eruptions and release of carbon dioxide and other gases like hydrogen sulfide into the atmosphere. So that increased the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, but and resulted into greenhouse effects. There were, in fact, 4 ice house and followed by 4 greenhouse effect during this 750 million years to 541 million years ago. And these changes probably were more suitable for life to diversify. However, the carbon dioxide concentration, if you talk about that, it was maybe about 10 times more than that, even greater than that at the very beginning, when about 4,000 million years ago, the carbon dioxide concentration was 6,000 ppm, which is at present it is 410 ppm. So carbon dioxide concentration was continuously decreasing. I'm talking about the atmospheric carbon dioxide. So where did carbon dioxide go? Most of the carbon dioxide was consumed by the earth crust. It formed different types of carbonates. So if you take the total count of total amount of carbon, it was almost same. The carbon dioxide in the atmosphere was converted into carbonates of the rocks. And that's why the concentration continuously decreased. However, the temperature of the earth was nearly constant. One may think that when carbon dioxide concentration is high, methane was also high, so there must have been a global warming kind of thing. But probably because of the fainter sun, the sun was fainter at that time, intensity of sunlight was less, and there was less albedo effect because of the predominant clouding and dusting in the atmosphere. The light could not penetrate to the earth's surface very much, and that's why the temperature of the earth, the average temperature, it ranged between 0 degree to 20 degree or so. So that's why there were many snowball phenomena or glaciation events during that, in the entire geological history from the very beginning, maybe after the after Archean, particularly glaciation periods, where many times they had happened, about more than 10 times, and there were more than 5 times mass extinction also. That seems that life that it might have originated during Hadean, but the process was repeated many times. However, the very first formation of life from the chemical substances, we will talk about that origin of life in a separate video, the how life could be formed from the chemical substances. That is one story. But once the cell has been formed, that cell can replicate and divide, and it can produce different types of cells, and that can evolve and mutate, and so many different kinds of other organisms could be produced from that. And at some pocket of earth, they must have survived. That's why during mass extinction event, some organisms survived, not the whole 100% of the organism. The earth seldom become completely sterile. It was not sterile. You can say it was disinfected. Anyway, so this particular period, Proterozoic to Paleozoic period, is very, very important in terms of the life to diversify on Earth. Paleozoic era, as we know, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic era, that evidenced a huge diversification in bryophytes, in pteridophytes, ferns, different kinds of gymnosperms. The progymnosperms were there. The Cycadophylliciales or Pteridospermelis were there, and then appeared the angiosperms, the dicots, and the monocots, like that. As far as the animals are concerned, the already before Paleozoic, protozoa were already there: Porifera, Cnidaria, Ctenophora, Echinodermata. These organisms were there. Fishes then appeared. Then amphibians appeared during Devonian to Carboniferous. That was followed by the reptiles during Jurassic, Cretaceous, and Triassic, Jurassic, and Cretaceous, those periods. And that was followed by the birds and the mammals later on. The primates at the top of the evolution. The human being was at the top of the evolution. So this was the sequence of evolution in animals that occurred mostly during this Phanerozoic eon, or in terms of era, Paleozoic, Mesozoic, and Cenozoic era. So this was the story of the major geological, biological, and atmospheric phenomena or events that occurred on Earth's surface since its origin. I believe you will like this video because this is very informative. I will give the references from where I collected this at the end of the lecture. You will find it. At the end, I will say thanks for watching.